Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en el mundo. Mi invitado especial en la tarde, mañana o noche de hoy, dependiendo de cuando usted esté viendo esto, su campeón mundial peso completo de Impact, el Impact World Champion, the Walking Weapon, Josh freaking Alexander, llega aquí a Lucha Libre Online, the Walking Weapon, uno de los mejores luchadores activos en todo el mundo, técnicamente brillante, el tipo ha hecho de todo, es físico y ahora mismo finalmente tiene un reinado propio. Josh, I thank you very much for your time, man, and for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to get started. I was picking up some words from that intro you're going through. I don't speak Spanish, but I heard like technically brilliant, and I heard something else magnificent. I was just like, oh, it's all good things.
Yeah. First of all, where do you learn Spanish? Like a little bit at least.
Oh no, I used to be fluent in French as a Canadian, and I haven't spoken for like 15 years, so I've lost most of it, but I still pick up words here and there. So I think there's a similarity between the two.
That's true. Josh, I want to talk to you about what you have in your shoulder. You're obviously a two-time Impact World Champion. The first time it was not pretty at all, but the second time it finally happened. And you defeated Moose in a banger of a match, almost 24 minutes. Like everyone that saw that match, their minds were blown. Like it was the main event of a great pay-per-view. It was a great lineup for Rebellion. How do you felt finally having the opportunity to hug the title properly and take it back home?
Well, that felt like my what's the word, coronation or crowning moment or whatever. That you say two-time champion when you talk about this, but to me, this is the only single time I won this championship. That first time was so bittersweet. I don't think I can count it because it lasted all of 2 minutes. But finally, like you said, Bound for Glory was such a good pay-per-view. Hard to Kill was such a good pay-per-view. Rebellion, all the pressure was on both myself and Moose, but mostly me as the person that's going in to be crowned as world champion, and go in there and deliver in the main event. And like everybody on the roster from the start to the main event had been delivering on all these pay-per-views that entire time. And then you had guys from different companies like Jay White coming in from New Japan and tearing it up with like Alex Shelley at Hard to Kill and all these other things. So I had all this pressure on me in the main event, rise to the occasion and make sure that this whole story arc, paid off. And luckily at the end of it, like you said, 24 minutes of one of the most grueling matches I've ever been in with Moose, and, all the emotion coming from the crowd and me and my family in there. And by the end of it, it went even better than I could have ever imagined,
Josh, I need to ask, how many times have you broken your nose in a match? Because at this point, everything is completely physical. And suddenly we saw a picture on Twitter, bloody nose, everything. Like, is that an often thing? It's because, the way you wrestle?
I think it's a combination of the both. It's the way I wrestle, which is why I've broken my nose so many times. But because I've broken my nose so many times, I've actually had like the surgery done for the deviated septum before. And, at this point, it's just, useless until I'm done wrestling. I'm not going to keep repairing it. So, it's just a little fragile. Every once in a while, it'll get nicked and it'll just start bleeding. And, as they say in the business, red is green, I guess. So it'll just show that physicality a little bit more.
That's just part of life, man. I want to list some talents and I will explain why. AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, Abyss, Austin Aries, Chris Sabin, Eric Young, Eddie Edwards, and Josh Alexander. These are the 9 men, if I'm not mistaken, that are the Impact Triple Crown champions. All of them franchise player. You are a part of that list, former X Division champion, former tag team champion, 2-time Impact World Champion. How does it feel for you to be the face of Impact Wrestling, to be a franchise player that will always live in the history books?
It's an understatement to say it's a dream come true. I've said it in promos. I've said it on interviews. I was a 15-year-old kid sitting down on my couch on June 19th, 2002, tuning into, TNA for the very first time on a Wednesday night. And I always say it, like that very first match that had low-key AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn against the Flying Elvis changed my whole mind on what pro wrestling was. And for it to like turn around now, 20 years later, for me to be the world champion going into the 20-year anniversary at Slammiversary on June 19th, 2022. And with all that lineage behind me, and to be a Triple Crown champion with all those names that inspired me to be in wrestling, like dream come true is an understatement.
Josh, I want to mention something in Spanish that you actually mentioned in English. Junio 19, usted solamente tiene un compromiso y es Slammiversary de Impact Wrestling, disponible ahora mismo para todos ustedes a través de Fight TV. Y si estás en el área del Fairgrounds de Nashville, en Tennessee, adquiere tus boletos a través de eventbrite.com. Acá abajo va a aparecer el enlace. Pero si usted está en Tennessee o está cerca, tiene que vivir esta experiencia. Impact Wrestling celebra sus 20 años y puede verlo desde la comodidad de su casa a través de Fight TV para ver Slammiversary, o puede verlo simplemente allí directamente en el Fairgrounds, en la arena histórica que creó en su momento todo lo que fue TNA y lo que ahora mismo es Impact Wrestling, which leads me to my next point, Josh. And you've spoken a little bit about this earlier. You are entering the 20th anniversary of Impact Wrestling. Slammiversary, June 19, 2002, now June 19, 2022. The Fairgrounds, that historical building. First of all, what does that building, does that place, Nashville, mean for you as a champion and for the company itself?
I think for the company, first and foremost, it means everything. This is the birthplace of TNA and Impact Wrestling. This is where all this history began. This is where the guys like AJ Styles and Abyss and Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle, all these people came together and built it through the Asylum years all the way until it got on Fox and then Spike TV. And, you know, it grew to what it is today. And for me, it's kind of awesome for me to go back to that same hollow ground where all these, you know, legends and all these things happened, where I was just as a spectator watching, you know, just dreaming of being able to compete there one day. And now I'm going to be able to do that at Slammiversary on the biggest stage in the main event of the 20-year anniversary against Eric Young. So
it's mind-blowing, Josh. But on the other side of the ring, you will have a former as well, Triple Crown champion, former Impact World Champion, and a franchise player himself. And that's Eric Young, the man that's become a headache for you, a worthy opponent, at least in my opinion, in terms of technical ability. The man is wise inside the ring. First of all, what are your thoughts on your opponent, Eric Young?
Well, our history goes further than like Impact Wrestling in the first place. When I first started wrestling in 2005, everybody talked about how Eric Young was the greatest wrestler that ever came out of Ontario, Canada, where I live and where I started. And he had just left and signed a contract with, you know, TNA probably a year or two before that. So he was completely gone from the scene. But everybody talked about the legend of Eric Young. And then slowly I built myself up to be the king of that territory, to be the one that now people talk about as the greatest wrestler that has come out of Ontario, Canada. You know what I'm saying? And for us to be both meeting, we've traveled different paths to get here, but we are converging at Slammiversary. And like you said, he's done everything that you can do here in Impact Wrestling. He's a Triple Crown champion. He's one half of the Knockouts tag team champions, for God's sakes, man. The guy can do it all. And now for it to come full circle here at Slammiversary with him, with Violent by Design, I think that since he's come back to Impact, other than, you know, right at the beginning there, he's kind of stayed out of the world title picture. He's kind of stayed out of the main event picture and all this stuff. And he's just been biding his time. And now, you know, with him and Joe Doring and Cody Deaner, they have enough steam behind them right now. And I think they have a point to prove. And I don't think there's any better opponent on the roster right now for me to face at the 20-year anniversary, because he embodies that first 20 years of Impact Wrestling like nobody else can on this roster. And I think I embody what the future of Impact Wrestling is. So we're going to see if it's past versus present, who's going to, you know, go into the future with this championship.
When you started this pathway, at least in Impact Wrestling, I recall a tweet where you were still working a day job, and life gave you a huge surprise. Obviously, you work hard for it, and you're now fully living from pro wrestling itself. Like, that's the dream of many people working inside this industry. You finally achieved it. How did that feel for you? Like, you worked so hard during your life to achieve everything you've got, and you finally are living from pro wrestling. That was one of your dreams. How does that feel?
It was scary, honestly. Like, from the moment in 2019 when I signed with Impact Wrestling, I could have quit my job. I could have lived off pro wrestling, but there was always this thing in the back of my mind, having, you know, 2 kids and a wife at home, where I was just like, what if I get hurt? You know, all this stuff I need to, like, I was just scared of the uncertainty of it, because I'm as much as I'm a glass half full kind of guy, I'm also a realist, which is kind of a glass half empty kind of guy from time to time, where you got to keep your eyes open for that stuff. So, you know, when I finally took the leap and I finally did it, like shortly before Bound for Glory last year, like I said, it was scary, but now everything that's transpired in these past, you know, what, 8-9 months since, Life has gotten so much better. Like I've settled into being a pro wrestler, being able to dedicate all my time to this craft without, you know, any other distractions and stuff. And I think it's benefited me, and it's benefited, you know, my time with my family and stuff too. So I'm very thankful for that.
Josh, your name has been mentioned in TV programming, including in other pro wrestling companies. How does it feel for you as the face of Impact to have the respect of your peers, but as well other companies watching you as the champion and watching the product of Impact Wrestling?
I mean, if all those other companies and people want to keep an eye on me because for whatever reason they have respect for me or they're interested in me or anything like that, it's only going to benefit myself and Impact Wrestling as well, because, you know, I believe that not just me, but, you know, a lot of this roster, we're some of the best wrestlers in the world. We all have a chip on our shoulder. We want to prove that, right? We're kind of the underdog in the wrestling community right now in North America. So we have a chip on our shoulder. We got something to prove. And if, you know, I'm going to be the front runner for that, I'm going to be the face of Impact Wrestling for that, that's completely fine with me. You know, the respect of my peers, that's the other thing you said. That means everything to me, honestly. I don't look at, as much as wrestling's a single pursuit, you know, a personal pursuit. To me, it's a team sport. I look at this whole roster as we're one big team, you know what I mean? And like I said, it means a lot to me.
Josh, your family has been involved inside all this chaotic pathway to the title. There's been blood, there's been tears, there's been happiness as well. You know, how important for you is to have your actual family support in all this crazy pathway that we call the wrestling career, because this is not easy. Like, there are multiple weeks that you're outside home. There are times where you're injured and you still have to go inside the ring there, you know, and they see you compete that way. Like, how important for you is to have their support?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this without, first and foremost, my wife. Like I was out with the neck injury. I had retired. When I came back to wrestling, it was when I first met my wife, and she was the one, as much as anybody, pushing me down, you know, to keep going and keep pushing and, you know, push through all this stuff. And, you know, I come home with bumps and bruises, and she's the first one that understands and, you know, tries to help me out where she can. And like, that stuff means everything to me, because that's what keeps me going. When I don't want to get up on a Friday morning at 4 a.m. to go get on a flight to an indie show somewhere, like, she's the one telling me, no, you got to go do it. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah. And my kids, like my 8-year-old, nearly 8-year-old, sorry, he loves watching me wrestle. But my 3-year-old, who just turned 4, he's obsessed with pro wrestling, as you saw at Rebellion. He like idolizes me, so I get to be a superhero for my sons, which is, you know, awesome. And just for me to give them memories that they can look back on and be like, I walked down to the ring with my dad on television on a pay-per-view that the world could see. Like, not too many fathers get to give the children memories like that. You know, that means a lot to me. So.
You mentioned your kid, which leads me to my next question. In Mexico, we've seen young talent debuting from 12 years, 13 years. Like, he's obviously only 3 to 4 years, but is it possible that maybe we will see a second generation of the walking weapon in the family?
If he is still interested in, you know, about probably 8 or 9 years, I will buy a wrestling ring and open up another wrestling school, and I will train him myself if that's what he wants.
So hopefully that will happen by then. Josh, main event, Slammiversary, Eric Young, all eyes on you, Nashville Fairgrounds, the historical building, 20 years, Fight TV for the world. To the people that are around the area, as I mentioned in Spanish, eventbrite.com. The link is going to be down here anyway, so you can click it and get your tickets. Well, if there are any tickets by then. But Josh, main event, game face, what's your strategy? What's, you know, how do you keep yourself mentally strong for highly probable the biggest moment of your career?
I mean, mentally strong, I don't put any, you know, thought into that stuff. I feel all the pressure, I feel all the nerves, I get the butterflies in my stomach, all that stuff. And you know, it all weighs on me going into it. I need to just stay focused on the match. And the good thing about all that pressure is it's always benefited me. That's always something, when like my back's pushed against the wall, I always seem to rise to the occasion. So it's something, that's what I enjoy out of pro wrestling. So the bigger the stage, the bigger the challenge, you know, the more eyes on me, it seems like I always seem to, you know, dig a little bit deeper and, come out a little bit more, show a little bit more than I've ever had before. And, with Eric Young at Slammiversary, like we've said, 20-year anniversary, I think there's a lot of stuff that we can show in that match that's going to kind of embody the first 20 years of Impact Wrestling. You're going to have like a trip down memory lane kind of in that match between the two of us. And it's going to be a technical showcase of two of the best wrestlers to ever come out of Canada. And, as Canadian wrestling means a great deal to me, it's definitely an honor that I'm going to be able to do that.
Josh, I'm going to say something in Spanish as well. 19 de junio, y de hecho el 20 de junio, el día después, también hay tapings al otro día en Nashville, eventbrite.com, Fight TV para que puedan verlo desde la comodidad de su casa. Slammiversary es el evento que no se pueden perder. Tienen que prestarle atención. Este es el momento. Josh Alexander, Eric Young en un lado, pero también tienen otras luchas de alto calibre. Tienen una lucha entre los Briscoes y los Good Brothers por los títulos en pareja. Está el Ultimate X Division match. Hay un X Division match de mujeres que es como mind blowing también, porque es la primera vez que pasa. En la lucha de Honor or More contra los Impact Originals, todo va a ocurrir en un solo lugar, y es el 19 de junio en Impact Wrestling a través de Slammiversary, disponible en Fight TV. Todos los jueves a las 8 de la noche, Impact Wrestling tiene su programación en Access TV y en YouTube a través de la suscripción mensual desde $1 hasta $5 con los Impact Insiders. Todos los jueves a las 8 de la noche, no se lo pueden perder. La programación está excelente y se lo digo porque consumo el producto constantemente. Shopimpact.com también para todo tipo de mercancía de Impact Wrestling. Y muchísima más información disponible a través de las redes sociales de Impact Wrestling. Los puedes encontrar así mismo como Impact Wrestling en las redes sociales, y ebay.com los pueden conseguir también /Impact Wrestling para todo tipo de memorabilia.